Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm going to be taking another look at the Phoenix. This time around, it's not a model kit. Of course, it is a figure, and it is the Robot Damashi Side MS Unicorn Gundam 3 Phoenix Destroy Mode Narrative version. As usual, this video right here would not be possible without those awesome people over at Hobby Link Japan, so if you want one of your own, there is a link down there in the description. Now let's get to this. So this right here comes in your standard looking Robot Damashi box. The reason I'm actually taking a look at this is because I was so impressed by the Hygog Ver anime that I wanted to see if all Robot Damashi figures have gotten as good as that was. So first off, you'll notice this is your standard looking Robot Damashi box. With the window in the front, you can see into the Gundam itself. We've got a picture on both sides, which will let you know pretty much what you're going to be getting in here, and around on the back we've got a bunch more pictures of what this will look like in action. Once you got them busted out of the box, this is exactly what it looks like. And I have to say, I am definitely impressed by how nice this looks. There are a couple of things I will mention first, and that is, it seems that both Bandai Spirits, the model kit maker, and Bandai Tamashii Nations, and maybe Bandai in general, can't seem to decide on what color exactly the Phoenix is. In a lot of the art, it kind of looks a bit on the orangey side. Some of the CG images make it look like a straight up standard gold. The gold coating version of the high grade I've taken a look at is towards the yellowy side of gold, and this right here is somewhat of an orangey gold, but at the same time there's a little bit of a bronziness to it. The pictures that Tamashii Nations released of this, the official images, make it look a little bit more orange than it actually is, but maybe they just shot it under a warm light, whereas I'm using a cool light right here. But all in all, as for this one's color, it's a gold heading towards bronze. It's probably the easiest way to describe it. And the next thing I'll mention is the size, because I am quite picky when it comes to scale. So I would have assumed this was around 1/44th scale like high grade, but it seems like it's a little bit smaller than that. There it is beside the real grade Unicorn Gundam as well as the high grade Phoenix narrative version gold coating, and you'll see that it is a bit smaller than both of those. So if you are picky about scale, this might bother you. It bothers me a little bit. But then again, Robot Damashi never say anything about scale at all, so it does kind of fit in with high grade, real grade size, but not quite. But with scale and color out of the way, the one thing I can say about this is it is impressively detailed. It looks so good. Of course, there are no clear parts in this like you would see with the model kits. The Psycho frame in there is just painted in a metallic blue. It looks very nice. If you find clear parts to look a little bit garish or crappy, then this might be more what you'd like to see. Personally, I like the clear parts, but this is definitely an awesome alternative. But as I was saying about the detail on this is ridiculously sharp, much more so than the high grade, and it does rock completely different and even sharper and more angled proportions than what we would have seen with the real grade. Whether this is better or worse, that will come down to your own particular taste, but it definitely does look different, with particularly harsher angles to all the armor parts. The head on this is vastly superior to what we saw on the high grade. But of course, while I mention that, this is around the 8,500 yen mark, which is twice the price of the gold coating high grade and over 3 times the price of the non-gold coating version. So you do get what you pay for right here. The detailing on the head is sharp, defined, and looks fantastic. And the best aspect is the crest V-fin on the top there. Look at that. I never realized before this time that that was a pair of wings and literally a phoenix beak as the central part of that crest. That looks exceptionally cool. This is definitely a more stylized and awesome take on the V-fin. That is pretty cool. Visually, another aspect that I find incredible about this right here, and that is the 2 tails coming from the Armed Armor DE wings on the back. Look at these. These are big, bulky, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But like I was saying, these are super long, super bulky, and look really cool. These are all individual parts on what is a wire underneath, so these can flex to pretty much whatever shape that you want. And I have to say, these are impressive, but getting back to that little bit of flash that was hanging off of the tip there, that is something that I had a problem with in the past with Robot Damashi figures. Of course, that is sometimes the seams and the nubs aren't cleaned up as well as they could be. For the majority of this figure, you won't even notice them at all. There's next to nothing around the place. That little one I showed you there, you can easily snip that off and you won't even notice. There is a fairly big nub on the insides of both of the upper arms, The seams in the legs are quite obvious, but all in all, I guess that is just something you get with a pre-assembled figure. Unless it's the gold coating high grade, then you can't do anything. But all in all, for the most part, the quality control on this is solid. The paint applications look good, really good. And as for those little flubs here and there, they're next to non-existent, besides the ones that I just showed you. So there is the Robot Damacy Phoenix narrative with everything that it comes with, and as you can see, it's pretty much your standard loadout. So what we get in here is, we've got 4 sets of hands in here, that is fists, beam magnum holding hands, so that means it can be held in either hand, a pair of beam saber holding hands, and finally a pair of widespread open hands. As for the beam sabers, we've got 2 of these, and by 2 I mean we've got 2 with the beam effects. But of course, because this is the Phoenix, or like any variant of the Unicorn, we do get 4 handles in total, just 2 of the beam effects, and these beam effects are really, really nice. So I guess they are pretty similar to what you'd see with Gunpla, but we do have this nice little blast of white paint towards the end where it's coming from the beam saber, which is a really nice effect, but you could get this pretty simply with any beam effect with an airbrush or a spray can just by hitting the end of it very briefly with some white spray. But all in all, it does look really nice, very effective. So as you would expect, these can be used in the hands. That is the standard beam saber holding hands. So that is what they look like attached. They look really nice. That is a particularly striking shade of pink right there. Just like with any variant of the Unicorn, when these are not in use, they can be stored around here on the backpack like this, or inside the forearms like so. When they are attached into the forearms, they can pop out as the beam tonfas, something I really, really dig about the Unicorn. Next up then is the Beam Magnum. So there is what that looks like. They have painted the magazine in there, which looks really nice. This doesn't separate, that does not come out. So as for moving parts, all we have on here is this little segment up here for storage, and this little handle that flips out here on the side. Besides that, it's pretty standard looking, but it is nice that that little section right there is painted. To attach it into the hand, this little section drops down, and it just slides in, simple as that right there. I like. Then you just pop off the hand and stick that all on, just like so. So simple and effective. Once again, I will mention that it can be held in either hand. Using one of those beam saber holding hands, we can attach it on like that, so it can be held in 2 hands, like so. When not in use, you can just flip out this little tab up here, pop that onto the backpack, or using this little tab here on the side, it can attach to the back of the arm, or onto one of these hard points on the butt flap. One very, very nice inclusion in the box, and I've seen this now with a couple of Robot Damacy figures, is an extra part which would be the most likely to break, and of course that is that Phoenix looking V-fin for on the forehead. So I find with figures and kits of Gundam, the most likely part to get lost or broken is the V-fin, so a secondary spare one is such a fantastic idea. That's great. I honestly wish more kits and figures did this. This would be very nice to see more often. Lastly in here then we have a pair of these little adapters, and what these are actually for is for using those wings on the forearms. So before these were made into wings for the Phoenix, these were the Armed Armor DE shields that we would have saw with the Banshee and the standard Unicorn. So these can literally slide off at that point, connect at this point onto that little adapter, and then they can attach onto the rear of the forearm like this to be used as a shield. So there's what it looks like with both of those attached onto the arms as shields, and that looks pretty damn cool right there. Moving on to the articulation, and as this is a figure, not a model kit, that is one of its best aspects, as well as the general strength of the build of this figure. But anyway, as usual, we're going to start from the head down. So at the neck, we've that standard double ball joint, one down here, one in the actual bottom of the head. So that gets us a giggity side to side. That does get a little bit blocked from moving all the way around. No, wait, it can go all the way around. And we've got that down and up. So that's a pretty good neck joint right there. At the shoulder, it's a standard ball and socket, but this part seems to move in and out ever so slightly. Odd. So all we've got there is exactly what you'd expect from a ball joint. We've got a secondary joint here that allows it to move up. That's as far up as it will go. There it is all the way down. The shoulder is separate to that, so there it is down and up. Rotation in here at the upper arm. A decent bend at the elbow. Just, ooh, a ball joint at the wrist. There's the actual ball, and there it is in action. So standard rotation and flexion extension. At the waist then, we've got a bit of an ab crunch forward and back. This is an extremely weak joint, the weakest joint on the figure, and really lets it down because you cannot do this ab crunch with the wings attached because it will just flop straight back. No real side to side here, and as for rotation, that is all we get. Front skirting is on a standard ball joint with up, down, ever so slight in and out. Ball joint again on the side skirt. There is all the way, oh shit. Ball joint then on the side skirt, there it is all the way up. That can move forward and back. Unicorn TM premium butt flaps. And yes, that is flaps with an S because we've got two of them, both on a ball joint. At the waist now, there is the kick all the way up to the front, not bad. All the way out to the back, again, not bad again. And if we flip those side skirts out to the back, out of the way, will we get the splits? Yeah, kind of, but not without knocking off the side skirts. Full rotation at the upper thigh. The knee has 2 points of articulation, one up here as well as one up here. So look at that bend at the knee. That absolutely destroys the high grade narrative version. Absolutely destroys it indeed. Of course, the real grade is still the king of unicorn articulation. It's also worth mentioning we've got a bit of a sliding gimmick here while the knee bends. This part slides down the knee armor. That is pretty cool. Flip out thrusters on the back of the legs. And down here at the feet and ankles, and down here at the feet and ankles, this is what impresses me the most. This little bit of armor here, that is static, but the one on the inside can rotate up and down in order to get it out of the way of the inward pivot. So you get a decent inward pivot there. This armor can flip up out of the way. There is the foot all the way up. Very nice. All the way down. Very nice as well. And on top of that, we do have a toe that can bend down really far. So that looks great for aerial poses. So sometimes it's nice to look at the actual functional movement you'll get out of a joint just to see how impressive it is. And this is really nice. The only down point I would mention is the toe doesn't bend upwards for kneeling poses. But in all honesty, you're not really going to see the unicorn on its knees. So that is it for the review, and this right here is definitely a mixed bag. But it's a mixed bag more full of good than bad. As for the negative things, I'll get out of the way first. The first one could be, and this is subjective, it is the color. It is a little bit towards a more bronzy tone than a gold tone, but honestly I do prefer this kind of metallic paint over metallic injection model kits or gloss finish metallic coating model kits. I do think it looks nicer. The metallic blue does look nice as well, but it could depend on yourself whether or not you prefer clear parts compared to that. And the other potentially negative, and the negatives like I'm mentioning are potential depending on how you feel about these things, the other one is the size. It's not exactly 1/44th scale. It's a little bit smaller, but not too far off really. However, the pros about this figure do outshadow those. Everything about this is great. The articulation is amazing, it's solid as a rock, nothing is gonna fall off, it will hold the poses, besides that one fairly weak joint at the waist. That is definitely a letdown too, sadly. And compared to some Ver.Anime Robot Damashi kits, it would have been nice to see some effect parts in here too, but maybe that's asking a little bit too much. But all in all, this is definitely a premium little figure. It looks fantastic, it feels fantastic, and on the whole, I feel it looks so much better than either variants of the narrative version of the high-grade Phoenix. So unless we are going to get, and I assume we're going to get, a real grade version of the Phoenix, I feel that this is the best close to 1/44th scale Phoenix that I have taken a look at yet. All in all, it is a pretty awesome little golden beast, and if you do want one of your own, there is a link down there in the description. You can get yours or any of your Gundam needs at Hobby Link Japan. As always, make sure to come back for more Gundam reviews, and I'll see you next time.